Art Laffer, former Reagan economist, co-author of The Trump Economic Miracle. Arthur, welcome. So, you know, this is one where the cause is just. We've got to change these unfair trading practices. There's no question about that. The idea of reciprocity sounded like a good idea. But, Arthur, when you look at these rankings, I don't know that this is really reciprocity. There's a part of this, when you look at it very carefully, I mean, it's the trade deficit divided by imports. That's an odd way to calculate reciprocity charges. It's kind of like a 25% tax on the world economy. That's what troubles me. I'm a supporter of reciprocity, and I think that President Trump's whole crusade, his mission, his policy goal to stop this unfair trading, which has done a lot of harm to our heartland, I think he's right about that. Not sure, as I look at it, Art, I'm not sure about the ways and means. You tell me what you're thinking here.
Well, the calculations are completely a ruse. They're wrong. They're bad calculations. We know what the tariffs are. We know what the non-trading. The trade deficit is not a problem. If you get people to bring their businesses back to the U.S., to load up their machines in Mexico, to drive them up over the border so they now employ Americans and not Mexicans, if you do that because we have good policies, that's called a Mexican trade surplus and a U.S. trade deficit. Trade deficits are capital surpluses. That's when you bring the capital home. So anything that says the trade deficit is bad is completely wrong. The U.S. needs a trade deficit because that's a capital surplus. When Reagan's tax cuts took effect on January 1st, 1983, the U.S. went into a huge trade deficit as the economy boomed beyond belief. Everyone was trying to invest in the United States, Larry. And what do you want? Capital lined up in your borders trying to get into your country or trying to get out of your country? Of course you want them to come into the country, and that's what happened with Reagan. And by the way, that's what's going to happen with Trump with its phenomenal policies. What he has done and all the rest of the policies are spectacular. I think he was the best single president on economics, by the way, in his first term. And if he does this right this time, he'll be the best president ever in economics. But it has to be, we need a big trade deficit, a big capital surplus, while everyone brings the jobs back to America. That's what we need.
Well, if you have, if you slash taxes, which is what's his policy, if you roll back all these onerous business regulations, if you produce more oil and gas, more energy in general, along with a fairer, friendlier trade policy, okay, if you do all that,
yes,
I would suggest that the American economy under Trump policies will grow. I mean, it's going to be 3%. It could be 3.5%. Who knows? Could be 4% over the next 10 years.
It could be much higher, Larry.
But the point I'm making is...
It could be much higher.
Yes, but the point I'm making... Yes, yeah, it could be. Whatever you think it can be. But the point is, we will grow faster than the rest of the world. Follow me. We will grow faster than the rest of the world. And in so doing, we will run a trade deficit. And it's not a bad thing. It's the natural... We're going to grow faster than Europe. We're going to grow faster than Asia. We're going to grow faster than China, even, for heaven's sake. So we're going to have a trade gap. I thought reciprocity was to bring down the tariff rates, okay, not an odd formula that looks at imports through the lens of trade deficits. That's the problem I'm having with this.
And you're totally right. That's exactly the way I thought of it too, Larry. And then I thought of it as manufacturing. And I looked at the manufacturing issue. And, you know, when I look at manufacturing in the U.S. and how we've been losing it, it's not China's fault or the rest of the world's fault. We should be looking in the mirror. The problem, as Pogo said, it's us. If you look at the manufacturing states like Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Wisconsin, they're all the highest tax states in the nation. Who wants to locate a new factory in Detroit? No one. It's forced union. It's all these things. The taxes there are terrible. We don't have any problem with manufacturing here in Tennessee. Believe me when I tell you, they're all coming here. The problem is our states are pushing manufacturing out of this country in a way because of their very bad policies. You know, if we had good economic policies in the U.S. at the state and local level, as well as Trumponomics on the federal level, we'd have manufacturing coming to this country by the barrel. I mean, it would be amazing. That's what we need to do, is find the real problems, Larry, and then solve them. This is a phony one there of looking at the trade deficit that somehow it's bad. You know, it's not. Reciprocity is the right thing to do. They should not tax our products more than we tax theirs. They shouldn't. Neither one of us should tax any of them at all. And let's just get on with the game and compete and get going. And that's what will win the war every time. So
therefore, it isn't exactly the reciprocity that we thought it was going to be. I think that's,
no, it wasn't.
I mean, that's the trouble. So now we do have a chart that shows the jump up in the average tariff. It's quite a large jump. It's within historical bounds, but it's a very large jump. We'll get that up on the full screen while we're talking. But basically, our average tax rate is going to go up to about 25%. It was as low as 2.5%. That's quite a large move. And I think, Art, you know, one reason for the stock market problems there, it is you can see it on the far right side. Now, it's not the worst we've ever had, by the way, but it is a big jump. It's almost like we got two. We got the $300 billion for the 10% baseline tariff and another $400 billion on the so-called reciprocity, which really isn't reciprocity. I think that's what spooked the market. You got two. And I hate to say, it's not two for the price of one. Well, it's two for the price of two is what you got going here.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in the Nixon White House when we put on the 10% surcharge and excluded foreign-made capital from the job development credit there, which was really protectionist. And you saw how the market collapsed. They did not withdraw it. I mean, you can also look at what happened when Kennedy cut tariffs. We had the go-go 60s when Reagan cut tariffs with NAFTA, when Bill Clinton signed it into law. We had a tremendously good economy. The economy responds there. I believed, Larry, and I believe in my heart of hearts that Donald Trump is using tariffs as a tool to negotiate the elimination of tariffs and non-tariff barriers and get a much freer trade world, just the way he did in his first term. And he did a beautiful job there. And I think he's going to do a beautiful job here. And you're going to see incredible prosperity once those new, very low tariffs come into play. I think you're going to see a great economy. I'm just counting on Trump using his own skill and expertise, and not those of some of his advisors, and use those skill and expertise to create enormous prosperity in America.
He is, right.
He's the right guy to do it.
He's a master negotiator. Look, there's no question, just on an average tariff basis, look, India has significantly higher barriers than we do. Vietnam does, China does, Taiwan does, South Korea does. The European Union does. So he's right. I mean, I support the thrust of the policy. I just don't think, though, that the called reciprocity, I agree with you, it isn't so much reciprocity now. It's become a trade deficit thing, and we're not going to wipe out trade deficits, even if that were desirable. We're never going to wipe them out. So where's that leave us, Arthur? Where does that leave us?
Well, that leaves us with cutting tariffs and cutting trade barriers to trade all the way across the board, getting them to cut theirs way down to our level. That's great to negotiate that. But to call Elon Musk a car salesman, which was what someone on the weekend thing, that's just outrageous. And when you look at all of this, look at the facts. Look at what happens when we do put on tariffs, and look at what happens when we reduce them. And when we reduce them, it's under Kennedy and under Reagan. You write all that book, and Clinton, the economy boomed. When we raised tariffs, as under Nixon, the economy collapsed. And, you know, Larry, it's just common sense. Tariffs are a tax. And we aren't going to collect any $700 billion in tariffs to lower income taxes. That's silly. There's a Laffer curve effect there. And let me tell you, when it was done before, you saw the volume of trade drop like a stone. It's going to be the lose, lose, lose if they do something like that. And Trump's not going to let that happen. He's just not going to let it happen.
Well, I think the sooner the president takes over the negotiations himself.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think there's really so maybe a half a dozen or a dozen misbehaving children have to come home to Papa, okay? That's the way I look at this.
Yes,
and
I
Papa's
do.
going to show them what they have
Yes,
to
sir.
do. And once Papa shows them what they're going to have to do, then his whole economic growth plan kicks into place and the stock market's going to recover. And by the way, the children are coming home. There's no question about that. I'm just waiting for Papa to negotiate through and tell them what they need to do. That's all.
You remember his old line on TV, Larry? You're fired!
Yes. Well, right there. All right. Terrific
I love it.
stuff.
Thank you, Larry.